It'll be good for all of us, honey, my mother, Vivian, stated, taping up one of the last boxes that held a collection of CDs. Taking a fat black Sharpie from her pocket, she wrote Violet in sloppy letters across the side of the cardboard cube and kicked it towards the front door. We need a fresh start. I promise, after the first week, you won't ever regret leaving Boston. Brushing a stray ginger hair from her eye, my mom smiled at me, and immediately returned to packing up. I had lived in Boston my whole 16 years of living. All my stupid, reckless mistakes, my stupid, reckless friends, my stupid, reckless existence was rooted here, and now I was being hauled 2,987 miles across the country because my dad doesn't know where he can and can't stick things. Couldn't my parents have been like all the others? Have a stillborn, probably have their love die, get a divorce, move a few streets away from each other. But, no, my mom wants to have a baby in her 40s, gross, and miscarries, whatever, and now my whole life is ruined because of it, not rad. My dad entered the shell of our house, rubbing his hands together excitedly. All right. Let me grab these 2 boxes and we'll be on our way. My mother smiled uncomfortably at him, helping him take some of the boxes and yelling at me to get in the car. I plugged in my headphones, watching my father try to hold my mom's hand the whole ride to Los Angeles, her lips forming the words, "Ben, I'm sorry," before she pulled away. I could see the pain in my father's eyes. Maybe he could look in the mirror and give his own sorry ass a therapy session. Violet. We're here. The gloomy house where a gay couple supposedly committed a murder-suicide loomed before me, my mother's tired eyes inches above mine. Come on, come inside. I crept into the house, the floorboards in the foyer creaking loudly with every step I took. That would definitely work against me. There was a dark hallway sitting in front of me, a door on the right-hand side swinging open, squeaking loudly. Violet Harmon, come help unpack. I jumped as my father's voice sounded behind me, his eyes sharp and as cold as ice. I pushed past him and outside, the warm sun beaming on my skin and glinting off the dark surface of the SUV. A large moving van pulled into the cracked and weed-infested driveway, coming to a stop and having movers swing the heavy doors open, revealing box upon cardboard box. As I turned to walk back to the car to grab some of my things, I bumped into a young girl, a scream leaving my lips. Hello, she stated, staring up at me. I'm Adelaide. Hi. My heart was still in my throat. He's going to come for you, she stated simply, shrugging her shoulders. He doesn't like to be alone. He doesn't want to hurt people anymore. With that, she walked away, disappearing into a row of hedges lining the edge of our property. I didn't know whether to be scared or weirded out, so I just continued on doing what I came outside to do and didn't give it another thought until the boy appeared in my new bedroom. I knew as soon as she stepped foot in the house that I was almost in love with her. Her hazel eyes were full of hurt, her beautiful smile filled with sadness. We were one and the same. Violet Harmon. Her name sounded like an escape to me, a place where I could finally be happy. My heart ached whenever the thought crossed my mind that maybe she wouldn't like me the way I like her. Life is about risks though, right? I've taken one too many in my lifetime. I was pulled out of my violet-riddled thoughts when I heard the real thing walking down the hallway, humming softly to herself. As soon as she entered the room, her eyes landing on me sitting on the large bed, she screamed loudly, dropping a box that she had held on the floor. Mom! Violet turned to run downstairs, but I hopped off the soft mattress and gently grabbed her wrist. Hi. I'm Tate. I said plainly, brushing a strand of blonde hair out of my eyes with my free hand. A look of realization spread over her face and the panicked look she had was gone. I wasn't sure what she was feeling right now, her eyes gave away nothing and that frustrated me. Hi, Tate. She gently tugged her arm from my grip, picking up the box and placing it in the corner of her room. I'm Violet. What are you doing here? I'm your neighbor. I shrugged. My mom says your dad could help me, maybe. She huffed and started to take things out of the box. CDs, maybe? Oh, great. So now sociopaths are going to be showing up in my bedroom from time to time. Violet turned to me, a book in her hand. Why don't you invite all your crazies over, we can have a party. A small laugh escaped my lips. I'm not crazy, Violet. I just know more. I know what a shit place the world can be. A meaningful look flashed across her face and then it was gone. I nodded to the CDs she had just put away on a shelf. Hey, you got any Bon Jovi? Violet laughed and hucked a CD at me. Totally. Put it in the stereo, track 7. It's my favorite. And so for most of the day I sat in Violet Harmon's room, slowly falling in love with her, and knowing she would be the one to fix the hurt in my heart. Don't hurt her. I pushed the red rubber ball into the shadows of the basement, waiting for it to roll back to my awaiting hands. I mean it. I think she'll do us all some good in this hellhole. I won't hurt her either. I rolled the ball back a fourth time, but this time it didn't return. I stood up, wiping my hands on my jeans. No one can hurt her. Hello, I saw some of your comments telling me to update and I'm immensely sorry for not updating and I have no excuses besides that I didn't feel like it. Now that I know people actually read it, I'll do my best to update. I hope you enjoy XX. I'm so happy cause today I found my friends. They're in my head. My pencil worked across the page of my math homework as I listened to Nirvana's Lithium. I had never really been into them before, but Tate had pulled me into his fascination with Kurt Cobain in the short time I had known him. After a short while, my stomach was grumbling and I decided that, since my mom was out at some yoga class or something, and my dad was seeing a patient, I would actually eat something. I had stopped eating dinner or any other meals around my parents as some sort of depressed boycott for what they had done to my life. I grabbed a cold container of leftover salad from dinner the other night and brought it back upstairs with me. As I lay in bed finishing the food, I looked at my pale wrists. The veins showed through like a blue map of my body and if I stared at them long enough they seemed to pulse before my eyes. My heartbeat, I thought. That's my heartbeat, and I want it to stop beating. I silently got up from the bed, the springs squeaking and the floorboards creaking under my light step. The bathroom across the hall from me was open and inviting. Stepping inside on the cold tile and shutting the heavy door behind me, I opened the medicine cabinet, grabbing my father's razors. I plucked one from the box and shut the mirrored cabinet door again, looking at my reflection. Come on, Vi, you crazy little princess. My dad's eyes shone brightly and the loose skin around his eyes crinkled up as he smiled at me. The reflection of myself I saw in his pupils was that of a happy 6-year-old girl with bright chocolate eyes and a genuinely cheerful smile. The mini memory flashed from my mind as I looked at the tired 16-year-old with the dull brown irises, the stress lines around her eyes, the cracked lips flattened into a line from a lack of laughing and smiling alike. You're shit, I whispered before dragging the shiny metal blade against my ghostly white skin. When I was little, I wanted to be an artist. My favorite part of painting was being able to have 4 colors and, if you mixed them the right way, have a million more. I paint with gray and it comes out red, I thought, digging the blade in harder. You're absolute shit, Violet. Give me the phone, Ben, I heard my mom's shaky voice shriek in the middle of the night. When have you been seeing her, you fucking liar? I was so sick of my dad's cheating. Sitting up in bed, I rested my head on my knees and listened in on my parents' argument, biting my lip and hoping they wouldn't get divorced. As much as I hated my parents sometimes, I didn't want to be one of those kids who came from a broken home, but I guess it didn't matter since I was already broken. As if on K, a tapping noise came from my window. I walked over to it quietly and opened it, peering outside to see Tate. Meet me in the basement, he shouted to me, disappearing behind a row of bushes. Well, shit. I threw on a pair of sweatpants and a long-sleeved t-shirt and tied my hair up in a ponytail, scurrying past my mom and dad's door to the stairs and continuing on into the basement. The cement floor was cold on my bare feet and I thought of all the fucked up shit that had happened down here. Something scurried in the corner and my heart stopped beating. "Hello?" I whispered, squinting my eyes in the dim light. "Tate, is that you?" "Over here, Vi," his gentle voice resonated from a back part of the basement, a part that was darker than the rest. I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to walk through the dark in a creepy old basement with no shoes on. Where? "Can you, come out to me?" I asked, trying to sound as non-pathetic as I could. Tate laughed and his shadow swept out of a doorway, greeting me by the stairs. "Come on," he said, lacing our fingers together. "I have a surprise." The closer he led me to the door, the more I realized that there was light emitting from inside. I pulled away from Tate a little bit, hesitant to enter the room. "Are you sure this is safe?" I asked, trying to peer into the doorway from my safe viewpoint. Tate laughed and started guiding me to the door again. "Of course it's safe, Violet." His expression became serious. "I would never put you in any danger. I would never hurt you, Vi." Then he was smiling again. "Come on, I want you to meet someone." We entered the doorway, one pathetic light bulb dangling from the ceiling, slightly flickering. A woman sat on the floor of the room, an old dress skirt spread around her. Her blonde hair was pinned up in an odd way and she was crying. "My baby," she sobbed, clutching a white handkerchief. "Where's my baby?" Tate turned to me and nodded a little, advancing towards the woman. "Nora?" She shot up, looking at Tate with a curious look. She was absolutely beautiful. "Nora, it's me, Tate. I want you to meet someone." Her gaze then fell on me, her eyes sad and haunting. "This is Violet. She lives here now. She means a lot to me." The woman slowly started towards me, her handkerchief still grasped between her long, ghostly white features. Her dress dragged behind her on the cracked cement ground, grimy and ripped. When she stopped in front of me, she reached a shaky hand out to caress my face. "Violet," she whispered, prolonging my name in an admirable way. Such a pretty name for a pretty girl. A tear slipped from her eye again. Was she always crying? "Don't end up like me, Violet." She sniffed and wiped at her eyes, suddenly starting to storm away. "Charles. Charles. Oh, Mother always told me not to marry him, why didn't I listen to you, Mother?" The back of her blonde hair was matted with a large, blood-stained hole and I was about to shriek when she suddenly disappeared into thin air. I felt Tate's hand in mine again. Isn't she cool? 1994/. I don't know what changed in me that morning. You could ask anyone, I was quiet, kept to myself, I was respectful. I didn't have any friends, I had only ever had one girlfriend in 6th grade, and I was fatherless. That's all anyone would be able to tell you. I think it might have been the fact that Constance was ruining another family for her own selfish purposes. I knew that my father didn't run away, she had killed him. I knew that she didn't love her boyfriend Lawrence, she only wanted the sex. It angered me that she would bring this man into my home and portray him as a father figure when he had his own family and had no business in ours. It started with Lawrence. I rolled out of bed, throwing on dark clothes, a long trench coat, and hiding multiple bullet packages and guns within the heavy folds of the coat. As I left that morning, I passed by a mirror in the hallway and saw a malice in my eyes that wasn't me. I took a bus to Lawrence's accountant office, giving the driver a fake smile, hoping he wouldn't sense the guns exiting the bus along with me, or the tank of gasoline in my hands. As I strided towards Lawrence's office, no one looked at me. Good, or I would have killed them, too. "Oh, hello, Tate." Lawrence looked up from his computer and smiled at me. "Shouldn't you be in school?" "Yeah, I'm going." I pulled out a gun and fired it at the door and the door handle, hearing shrieks from the library as I pulled the door open. I gunned down 5 students and a librarian before taking off back to my house, collapsing on my bed and trying to make sense of what I had done before I was shot and killed, too. /present day / I traced the outline of Violet's lips, her head in my lap. It was completely silent, the only thing heard was our breathing. Do you believe in God? I whispered, those words all too familiar on my lips. Violet looked up at me, curiosity in her eyes. No, she stated simply, sitting up, God is a load of bullshit. I mean, if there was a God, surely half the awful stuff that happens in the world wouldn't happen, right? If God has the power to stop it, then why doesn't he? I almost smiled at how cute she was when she got worked up. Grabbing her hand, I pulled her back into me. I don't know, Vi. I laid back on her bed, taking her with me. Maybe even God can't save us anymore. I'm pregnant, Ben. The words were like barbed wire in my mouth, and when I saw the smile spread across my husband's face my stomach lurched. Viv, that's amazing. His smile grew wider still. We're having a baby. I hoped my grimace didn't show too much as he advanced towards me, pulling me into a hug. We're going to be a family again, Vivian. I did my best to hug him back, suppressing my tears as well as I could. Yeah, I answered, my voice quiet. Something in the back of my mind felt the need to remind me that I was almost free from this, free from what we had become. I was almost in Florida with Violet and away from Ben, and I got pregnant. I need to go find Violet, the school called about her. I hurried away with my somewhat truthful excuse, advancing up the stairs and knocking on her door. Music played softly from behind the heavy door, and I thought I heard voices. Violet? The music stopped and I heard some muffled noises. Hold on a sec, Mom, I'm laying down. Moments later, a slightly disheveled Violet opened the door. What's up? I hesitated and gave her a questioning look, pushing past her into the room. I came to talk to you. The school called me. She groaned and crossed her arms, leaning against her door frame. It's the first day of school, Vi, why are they telling me you're getting into fights? It was just some stupid girls, Mom. A wave of panic crossed over her face. Don't tell Dad. He'll shrinkify me. Please don't tell Dad. I bit my lip, sitting on my daughter's bed and sighing, hoping it wasn't too loud. I know this is hard for you, I get it, but Dash. Oh, God, Mom, no. You don't get it. You and Dad dragged my ass across the country for yourselves. I wasn't the one who cheated on you, or ruined your hopes of having another kid. Why am I the one being punished for all you guys' shit? Violet turned and walked out the door, a frustrated scream leaving her lips. Placing my hands on my stomach, I closed my eyes, hoping the tears burning behind my eyes would leave. Viv? I heard Ben call, his footsteps drawing nearer. Vivian, I heard the yelling, what's going on? I looked up at my husband, doing my best to smile. We just need some time to adjust, that's all. Ben smiled and sat next to me, taking my hand. His touch was like fire on my skin, blistering hot and painful, bringing back unwanted memories about what those hands had done to his psychology student. I pulled away. Ben sighed. Viv, I have to fly back out to Boston for a patient, she committed suicide, and her family wants me out for the funeral. It's only for a few days. I don't know, Ben. Hayden is in Boston. Vivian, it's for a patient. That affair was a mistake. You know I wouldn't do it again. Hayden is all in the past. Hayden is all in the past. I hated lying to her. I should have said, Hayden is all in the past, after I go help her abort the baby I gave her. I'm so stupid. I should have never gone back to see her after we moved. I never should have made the same mistake twice. Now I was going to pay the consequences. Tate, my God, don't be stupid, Constance groaned, taking a seat in a broken chair in the basement, a yellow flickering light over her head. Well, mother, I think I love her. She flinched at the sound of me calling her mother, every sound of the word dripping with hatred and sarcasm. The red-haired housemaid that Constance had shot, Moira, laughed coldly, her foggy eye staying still as the other rolled upward. You know the living can't mingle with the dead, Tate. If that were the case, your mother would be one of us in 5 seconds flat. Yeah, I know. I would do it myself if I could. Constance's jaw was tight and I knew we were pissing her off. Amazing. Well, if you're done here, Casper the friendly ghost, I'll be on my way. Good luck with your little girlfriend, she'll end up dead because of you anyway. Constance left through the door in the basement, Moira vanishing along with her. Tate. It was her. I turned to see her standing at the bottom of the stairs, her long hair the color of autumn, her eyes the color of golden honey captured in the rays of a setting sun. Hey, Vi. I smiled at her, patting the open spot next to me on the basement floor. She walked over and sat next to me, resting her head on my shoulder. We sat in silence for a bit, but after some time I felt wet tears falling on my shirt. Hey, I whispered, tilting her head up to look at me, what's wrong? Violet started to cry even harder. Her cold hands gripped onto me and she hid her face away in the folds of my shirt. I don't want to be here anymore, Tate. I'm so sick of this fucking shitty world. Hey, whoa. Don't go talking suicide on me. You aren't going anywhere. She pushed up her sleeve to reveal her cut-littered wrists. I had seen her cut before, and I didn't have the balls to make myself known and tell her to stop. This isn't enough anymore, Tate. I'm sawing my arm off, and for what? Some sick fucking notion that it's making everything okay. She laid down in my lap, soft sobs leaving her lips. I wanna die. I stroked her hair and stayed silent, because I knew I couldn't say anything to make this better. She would get over it on her own. After a while, Violet sat up, her red-rimmed eyes making the color in them pop more. She wiped her nose on her sleeve and smiled at me. I'm feeling much better now, thank you. She stood up and walked upstairs. I sat alone on the basement floor until a red ball rolled up and hit my shoe. Hey, buddy. I turned in the direction it came from. Wanna play? Some bitch at school gave me these pills that are supposed to help you sleep or some shit. Sitting on my bed now, I was glad I had them. Twisting off the cap was a hard task, considering my hands were shaking so badly I could barely open a door. Come on, Violet. Finally, it popped off, silently landing on my bedspread. I only took a few pills at first. 1, 2, 3 capsules disappeared down my throat. Then it was 5. Then it was 9. And then the bottle was empty. I felt myself drift into a sweet serenity. Everything came rushing back full force as I sat up, wet, cold, and tired, coughing and vomiting at the same time. I turned around and saw Tate behind me, crying hard, and I started crying, too. I curled up to him in the bathtub, the shower dousing us continually. Thank you, I whispered, hugging him tighter. I'm feeling much better now. The bed sunk under my weight as I sat down, folding my legs underneath. I stared at the gray paint on my walls and the worn-out look everything had to it, seeing it but not seeing it at all. My mind was reeling fast, and I knew what I wanted as soon as I felt him in the room with me. Tate. Yeah. I knew he was laying behind me, and I knew how he got there so quickly, but I didn't want to face that now. I laid back, my cheek hitting his warm skin and his smell surrounding me in an intoxicating haze. Tate, I'm ready, I spoke slowly, shifting so I was on top of him. I leaned down and kissed him softly, tugging at his lip gently and tracing my fingers wherever I could place them. I want this. He flipped me over, taking control as he aggressively kissed and bit his way down my neck, pausing only to whip his shirt off and help me take off mine. He kissed me once more before moving on to my pants, unbuttoning them and tugging them off as I unclasped my bra. No one expected him to snap like that. Thank God he didn't have to rot in that jail. My poor baby, alone in a cold cell. I just know that it must have been something I did. How could he just kill all those people, all those innocent people? I couldn't get Constance's words from earlier on out of my head, but I tried to force them out so I could enjoy this. Vi, are you sure you want this? It's gonna hurt. I nodded, watching as Tate slowly moved toward me, starting to push inside of me but stopping. If it hurts at all, if you can't stand it, if you change your mind, tell me to stop, okay? I nodded, again, and sucked in a breath as he moved fully inside me and started to thrust in and out. An aching pain spread throughout me, deep and overbearing, but I couldn't let him stop. I knew when I heard the gunshots in his bedroom that he was dead. Mother's intuition, I guess you could say. Especially for my Tate. He was the most handsome boy I had ever seen, the only golden egg I had. None of my other children could ever compare to Tate, no, because his beauty was that of a movie star. I should have taken him to see somebody when I noticed him changing, Violet. I should have and I didn't and I hate myself every day for it. God, Vi, you're so beautiful, Tate whispered, the sweat glistening on his chest and his throaty moans making me want to tell him he was beautiful, too, but I couldn't speak a word as the pain I had felt before started to wane off as I felt something good, and I wanted more. Violet, I love you so much. He was nearly shouting now, and the good feeling I was having was getting more intense, and I could barely feel the pain anymore. Don't you see? You can't be with him, Violet. He needs to embrace the fact that he's dead and then maybe he can move on. If he's loving a living girl he won't know his boundaries as an entity and he could be trapped in that house forever. That's why he's seeing your father, Violet, because, maybe, it will help him see that he doesn't need help, he needs to leave this world. He isn't one of us, he doesn't belong here. Tate landed heavily next to me, pulling the blankets on my bed over our naked and sweaty bodies. I turned to face him, trailing my hand up his arm, across his chest, around his face. You're really here? I murmured, continuing to touch him. He laughed and took my hand away from him, kissing my knuckles. Of course I am, Vi. I'll always be here. He's so little, I whispered, holding on to the only sibling I had that could remain here in the house, Jeffrey. Constance had taken the other one away, the devil child, the one that Tate made when he fucking raped my mother. I felt him watching me all the time. I knew he was waiting for me to call his name, but the word Tate hadn't been spoken in my family for almost a decade. My father despised him, my mother thought it was time to forgive. I have for fucking ever to decide that, Mom. I didn't have just one reason to hate Tate, so it pissed me off when almost everyone besides my dad mentioned the word forgive to me every 5 seconds. He had raped my mother, killed my mother, lied to me on multiple occasions, didn't save me when I was dying, and you know what? I'm gonna add my father's death to that list, just for the hell of it. Jeffrey started to gurgle in my arms, and I bounced him softly, humming a tune to him, Lithium by Nirvana. Kurt Cobain. Tate. God, everything in my life revolved around Tate. Hello there, stop lurking around and sulking and join us. Moira spoke, motioning to the shadows and giving me a pointed glare. I saw his mop of blonde hair and forced myself to look away, trying to get rid of the lonely ache in my chest that's been there ever since I told him to go away. The baby was lifted from my arms by who knows, because when I opened my eyes to see, his big brown eyes were staring back at me. Violet, he spoke cautiously, and sadly, but it felt so good to have him say my name again. No, I couldn't think that way, no. Violet, he said again, standing up and holding out a hand, let me explain. I slapped his hand away and found my way to the basement, hoping he was smart enough to follow me. I sat on the cold floor, closing my eyes tight so I wouldn't cry. When I heard him enter I took a deep breath, looked at my hands, and said, you have 10 minutes. I listened to his elaborate story on how he was trying to help Nora, and when he raped my mom it was before he knew me, before he loved me. I listened to his, "I'm sorry, yes" and shaky, "I love yous" and the occasional, "Violet, look at me, please, just look at me, god damn it." I stared at my hands for some good time, my mind reeling. "We need time, Tate." I heard his pathetic laugh that was born from desperation and depression. "Time. Vi, we've had years. Please, Violet, understand dash." I held up a hand, indicating for him to stop. "Don't." I glanced up, watching his chest heave up and down, my eyes traveling to meet his softening gaze. "Distance. We need distance. Wheel." The basement was completely silent, the only sound being Tate's shaky breaths. "We can be friends. She wants us to be friends." I rolled the red rubber ball into the darkness of the basement, waiting until it rolled back to talk again. "Can you believe that? I just love her so much, god damn it, I have to take whatever I can get." I, again, rolled the ball back and it didn't return, so I figured he was done talking. But I wasn't. "She's so beautiful. Her heart is so beautiful. I wish we weren't dead so I could marry her, and give her a nice house, not this shithole, and 10 million beautiful children that are just like her." The ball slowly rolled back towards me again, and I smiled. "Thanks, bud. I knew you would come through. Go away, Tate. You're all I want. You're all I have. Go away." I shot up at the sound of a door closing, feeling the wetness of tears on my cheeks. I must have drifted off into a daydream. I turned to see who had entered the room, my heart beating faster at the sight of her face. "Hey, Vi," I smiled, hoping she wouldn't ask why I was upset. It would be too awkward and tense for us to relive that, but then again, wouldn't Mr. Harmon say that talking it out would cleanse the soul or something? "I don't know, I'm just a dead teenager." "Hi, Tate." She tentatively came over to join me on the floor, her hair falling in front of her face. "How are you?" I stole discreet glances at her every so often, barely even realizing she asked me a question. I'm okay," I answered, trying to rid my face of tears. "How are you?" She didn't answer, she just brought her gaze to the worn wood floor. I could see the gears spinning in her head. "I don't want this to be awkward for us, Tate. We aren't going to be close friends anytime soon, and certainly not what we were before. Color rose to my cheeks as the idea of what had happened was spoken aloud. "But I don't want it to be awkward." I nodded. We sat in silence for a bit, the awkward still filling the air, before an idea struck me. "Have you ever been big into cards?" She looked up at me with a weird look on her face. "What?" I stood up and got a deck of cards, shuffling them and setting them on the floor. "Cards. You ever played poker?" A smirk crossed her face and she rubbed her hands together. "Prepare to get your ass kicked. Halloween was soon. That was the one day, the beautiful, beautiful day that I could leave this awful fucking house and go see the world. I remember the last Halloween I spent alive. Tate got hunted down by the people he killed and Addie died and some crazy guy was banging on my door for money. And I thought my life was a shithole then. I can't explain to you how boring it is to spend your life in a huge empty house. You can't eat, sleep, and music is limited. Listening to the same few CDs over and over doesn't cure your boredom, if that's what you're thinking. Sure, there are others like me in this house, but a good chunk of them are miserable and shitty or just huge asses. Plus, there is no privacy. Every time I try to be alone someone just appears and I can't get them to leave. Like my mother. She has the damn baby she's wanted since we got here, and that isn't good enough for her. Her main purpose in life is to annoy me, it seems, and she does a good fucking job of it. I think even she's getting bored. The baby will always be a baby, and even though babies are adorable, having one for years on end gets tiring. We haven't even had people to scare away. No one's bothered to move into this house in ages. I know it's kind of sadistic, but I sort of want another family to die in this house, just for a little company. Just so the boredom will go away. As you can see, the previous owners of the home had marvelous tastes. There was a new real estate agent for this house now. Maybe the other one had given up, but I guess I would never know. The new family continued to walk around the house, a young couple and a toddler with chubby hands and waddling steps. A hand touched my shoulder and startled me out of living people gaze. It was Violet. My heart pounded and my skin burned where her hand had been. Come on, Tate, we have to plan to scare these guys away. Her voice was soft and hesitant. I hated how awkward we were. Yeah, okay. I took one last glance back at the family before following Violet. Everyone was gathered in her old room, the memories of her dusty CDs and well-used stereo merely ghosts in my mind, no pun intended. I mean, we have to change it up a little, make it fresh. I've been dying of boredom and this is all I have, Ben spoke, pacing around the room until his cold eyes landed on me. I was dead, but I felt his anger radiating in waves, the only thing I had felt for a long time. Violet. His voice was calm but he was still looking at me. What is he doing here? Helping, she replied, with her signature eye roll. Vivian looked tentatively between the two of them and then continued on the conversation, hoping to stop a fight before it happened. Hey. We have a family to get rid of. Focus. Say it again, I whispered, my fingers tracing the veins in his pale skin. His dimples deepened as he smiled wider, looking up at me and laughing. Say what? I groaned, partly shoving him off me, because I know he would give in. Okay, alright, Vi. He sat up and kissed me, keeping my forehead close to his. I love you. A warm feeling spread through my chest and I could feel myself falling in love with this golden-haired psychopath all over again. Goddammit, Tate. I love you, too. He bit his lip and smiled again, stroking my hair and kissing me over and over again. I can't wait, he spoke, nuzzling into me, for us to be like this forever. I wiped away the tears slipping down cheek, cold and wet and filled with sadness. I had been thinking about him. When wasn't I? It was so much easier when I could feel him and not see him, when I knew he was there but I couldn't touch him, hold him. It was so much harder to see the hurt in his eyes and the lust in his heart. I turned to look in the doorway to my dad's office, seeing Hayden lounging on his old dusty desk. Thinking about lover boy again. Her voice, her being, reeked of hatred and loathing. Me too, honey. I love the way his tongue feels as it dash. Shut up. Just shut up, okay? Haven't you fucked up enough in your lifetime? Can't you just leave it be? If she wasn't dead already I'd kill her. Geez, who peed in your coffee, sweetie? Her snarky tone struck deep in my core and it took everything in my power to walk away, only to run into Queen Bitch herself, my mother. Oh, there you are, Violet. I've been looking all over for you. I need you to watch Jeffrey, he's been crying all night. I swear, he's so colicky. Just like you were. Also, have you seen your father? I haven't been able to find him all day. I heard the baby start to cry again. There he goes. Will you get him? I groaned but didn't argue with her. Not like I had anything better to do in this shithole. I crept up to the nursery, the baby rolling around in its crib. Hey, kiddo. I spoke quietly, afraid to upset him further. Picking him up softly, I rocked him back and forth, humming him a tune that was all so familiar but I couldn't name it. Jeffrey eventually fell asleep, his eyes fluttering shut. I turned to leave, only to come face to face with a teary-eyed Tate. You still remember, he whispered, his voice laced with sadness. You still remember the song I used to sing to you? So that's where it was from. I guess so. I smiled a little, halfway out of pity and halfway so I didn't cry, too. This is a new character and a new POV, so bear with me guys. I know in this past Eve alternated a lot, but from now on it's gonna be Tate and Violet and the new character, and that's it unless otherwise stated, so yay, enjoy. Oh, and PS, previously they were scaring away a family, which they already did. This is a new one, okay, haha, sorry about the huge skip. Glowing. I guess that's one way you could describe me. My parents named me Elizabeth Summer at birth, but everyone had taken to calling me Summer. They said it was because I shone like the sun and my smile was too warm for a name like Liz. I guess I was too warm for Colorado, too, because here we are at the new house. I hadn't complained when Dad said his new job was moving him out to California. It would be good for him to have a change, it would be good for all of us. My little brother, Kai, wasn't as easy. He cried for days, screaming that he wouldn't go. He raged that he couldn't start over at a new middle school. He was already good here. He liked Colorado. That's what he said, anyways. I knew it wasn't true. I knew he would miss the way the stairs creaked, and how Mom loved it. I knew he would miss the faint smell of her on the side of the bed that was always made, the way her favorite red nail polish was still stained on the carpet in the living room. I knew he would miss seeing the remnants of her favorite cereal in the pantry, her leftover spaghetti that we still hadn't taken out of the fridge. He missed her, but at least here he couldn't forget her. He didn't want to forget her. It was a lot harder to not forget her all the way in California. After a lot of bribing and coaxing, Dad managed to get Kai to comply. I still saw the morning in his eyes as we closed the door on an empty house, all of our belongings in a moving truck. I saw the way he cried over a picture of Mom the night before we left for good. And now here we are. For good. I don't know what made my father pick this house. It was old and dusty, kind of morbid. The realtor took us through cheerily, completely out of place in the gloomy Victorian. I tried not to show how much I hated this house. After we toured the whole house, the realtor stopped at the front door. I have to tell you the past about this house. I could get fired if I don't. She tried to laugh it off. Many people have died here. Many people have moved in and out of here in a jiffy. The last owners were here for a few weeks before they took off, tails between their legs. My dad smiled warmly at her and put his arms around me. In Kentucky, a few ghosts, then. Nothing we can't handle. I could tell he didn't believe a word. Who would? You aren't trying to scare us off or pressure us into a higher price, Janine. They laughed in unison. So Dad had gotten this house cheap. That explains why we moved here. Dad told Kai and I to go pick our rooms and get settled. I raced up, suitcase in hand, shoving Kai out of the way on the staircase so I could have first pick. There was a gorgeous room with cold blue walls and a scuffed hardwood floor. I threw my stuff inside and slammed the door in Kai's face. He whined about how he wanted this room from the other side of the door before wandering away, hoping to get better second dibs. I looked at the bed in the back of the room, empty save a bare mattress that was stained and old. A discarded CD pamphlet lay in the corner of the room. I picked it up gently. The edges of it were curling and yellow. It was for a popular Nirvana CD that my dad had somewhere in his collection. Just as I was studying it more, a draft filled my room. It was cold. Freezing. I turned about, thinking maybe there was an open window or something, before I remembered we were in Cali and it was almost 80 outside. I shivered and ended up opening a window, hoping a warmer breeze would flow in, as I went about unpacking my stuff. It didn't take long before I felt like I was being watched. I tried to shake the feeling, but it was persistent. Eventually, I turned around and saw a young boy about my age with shaggy blonde hair, another girl the same age at his side. She was beautiful. Hi, I'm Tate. This is Violet. I'm dead. Wanna hook up? She wasn't anything special. I don't know why Tate wanted us to meet her so bad. Straight black hair, dull eyes, average. Asian American, preppy looking, and not seeming like my cup of tea. She screamed when we showed up, letting my Nirvana pamphlet float to the ground. She quickly composed herself, brushing her perfectly straight dark hair out of her almond-shaped eyes. "Hello, I'm Summer. Are you the neighbors?" Tate smiled at her. I felt a rage flare up in me. It was his admiring smile, the one he always used to do after I said, "I love you." "Yeah, I guess you could call us that," Tate answered. "Well, I really should get back to unpacking. Shall I see you both in school?" I laughed a little, bending down and picking up the pamphlet off the floor. "I'd give anything to go to school, trust me. But Tate and I don't go there anymore. We have other responsibilities now." "Well, Vi, let's let the lady do her unpacking. Bye, Summer. It was a pleasure meeting you." He winked at her, and I swear I saw her blush. After we left the room, Tate spoke again. "I'm gonna be sad to see her leave." I tried to hide a frown, draping my hair across my face. "Why?" I guess it came out a little harsh, because he gave me a strange look, which was quickly replaced by a smirk. "Violet Harmon, you're not jealous, are you?" Now it was my turn to blush. "What the fuck, Tate, no. I'm just saying, she's not really anything special. She's really just a plain Jane if you ask me." I was so fucking jealous. Tate got a dreamy look in his eyes. "I like her innocence. I like how she has a clean slate, you know. It helps me forget about all the dark shit inside me. Her energy is just so good. If you're into girls with sticks up their asses, why do you love me?" "What the fuck, Violet? That was tender sorority. Are you fucking stupid?" Tate whipped his head around so fast I thought his head would fall off. He paused for a beat too long. My stomach dropped. "I don't think I do, Violet. Not anymore. There was a time when I hated Tate. Then he had come back into my life, and I had told him we would be friends. Truth be told, as soon as I saw him all the love I had for him came rushing back. In fact, I think it was always there. So I couldn't very well just start crying and screaming when he said he didn't love me anymore, because, as far as he knew, that's what I wanted." "Oh, okay. It makes sense." No. Tate smiled widely. "Vi, this is good, right? This way we cannot be awkward, we can be friends. Good friends." I tried to smile back. I felt like a porcelain doll, like my whole face was about to shatter and leave me a broken mess. "Yeah," I said, continuing down the hall, "I guess you could call us that." Violet didn't know that I came to talk to Summer a lot. I made myself known when she would come home from school, acting as if her father had let me in or the back door was open. She never seemed to mind. "Tell me about your family," she said to me one day as she rinsed strawberries off in the sink. I hesitated to tell her the truth or not. I hadn't told Violet, and look where that got me. My father ran away. Not entirely untrue. That was what Constance had tried to get me to believe. My mother died a long time ago. Not entirely untrue, either. The woman I came to know and love as my mother wasn't the same woman Constance was today. As for siblings, I have none. Again, half true. Summer set the bowl of strawberries on the counter, drying her hands on a towel. "Oh, my, that's awful. So, you live with your girlfriend now?" She innocently ate a berry, staring up at me through her eyelashes. "Girlfriend? Violet's not my girlfriend." Wow. Speaking Violet and girlfriend aloud in the same sentence made my heart beat a little bit faster and my smile a little bit bigger. I had to remind myself that I liked Summer. Violet and I were just friends. Summer smiled. "Single, eh? That's not so bad. I tried to ignore the fact that her inexperienced attempt at flirting didn't stir anything inside me. It was the thoughts of Violet doing it that did. I watched her eat another strawberry, longing to be able to taste one. "Now tell me about your family." Just then, there was a knock at the back door. As Summer opened it, Violet stepped in, looking angry. Of course, she hadn't really come in from outside. The farthest we could travel was to the gazebo. "Tate. I'm so glad I found you. Can we talk?" Her words were anything but cheery, but she did her best to paste a smile on her face. "Yeah, usual spot." I discreetly motioned to the basement. "Yes." She turned to Summer and nodded curtly. "Hello." Violet left through the back door, but I knew she was sneaking off to the basement. I said goodbye to Summer and tried to sneak off as well. "Tate," she called out before I left. I stopped and turned back around, indicating I was listening. "Don't let her bully you around, okay?" I smiled and nodded, hurriedly scurrying away to meet my doom in the basement. Violet was sitting on the cracked cement floor, her legs crossed, rolling the rubber ball into the shadows. "Glad you could join me, Tate." I sat down next to her, watching the ball roll back to her. "I need to speak to you about Summer." "What about her?" "Shit. I had a feeling this would take a bad turn." Why do you like her, Tate? What do you see in her?" The words got stuck in my throat. I didn't know how to answer her. "What about her?" "Shit. I had a feeling this would take a bad turn." Why do you like her, Tate? What do you see in her?" The words got stuck in my throat. I didn't know how to answer her. "I don't know, Vi. I just do." She clutched the ball in her hand, her knuckles turning white. "She's nice, and funny, and beautiful." I didn't know it was possible for her knuckles to turn whiter. "I'm sick of everything being built on lies and being fake, Tate," she whispered, rolling the ball into the darkness and standing up, signaling we were done here. "I'm so sick of it." I could see the pain written across her face like an open book. "I love you. Too much for you to be unhappy, but too much for you to be with her." And it sent a knife through my heart that I had fallen so out of love for her that I couldn't truthfully say it back. "I really like him, Dad," I sighed, eating some of the grapes he had left out on the kitchen counter. "You have to meet him. He's darling." My dad laughed, coming to sit by me. "Well, if he's so wonderful, the only regret I'll have is that your mother can't meet him." I smiled. "Oh, Daddy, she'd love him." Suddenly, Tate came around the corner, surprised to see my dad. "Hey, Summer." I let myself in the front door, sorry. I knocked, but... I got up and led Tate over, trying not to look worried as my dad not so subtly scrutinized him. "Dad, this is Tate. Who I've told you about." My dad said nothing and continued to analyze Tate. "Tate, this is my dad, Stephen Ing. He's a teacher at the school. He filled in for one of the old English professors. That's why we moved here, remember how I told you that? Right, Dad?" Ugh, he was still staring. "How embarrassing. Dad? I've seen you before," he stated matter-of-factly, still not moving from the kitchen counter to shake hands or do at least something relatively politely. Tate bit his lip nervously, fussing with his hair. "No, sir. I don't think we've ever met." "No. I've seen you before. I never forget a face." My dad sat and pondered for a bit more. He looked like he was staring into Tate's soul, for God's sake. Suddenly, he shot up, snapping his fingers. "The school. I've seen your picture at the school. It was in one of the old newspapers." "Like, old newspapers?" I couldn't let my dad carry on. Tate looked as if he might pee himself. "Dad, seriously, stop." I gently grabbed Tate's arm. "We're going upstairs. I think we should talk later." My dad seemed embarrassed all of a sudden. I'm not one to be spiteful, but for the moment, I felt pleased that he was so humiliated. It was very nice to meet you, Tate, he waved as we turned towards the stairs, his cheeks a bright red. Once I shut the door to my bedroom, Tate started to laugh. It was my turn to blush. What? Jesus, if I had known I was going to be interrogated I would have come more prepared. I thought I would just have to shake his hand and say, yes, sir, and, of course, Mr. Ing, a bunch of times. Never that. If I wasn't upset before, I was now. I felt so awful about how my father had acted. What had gotten into him? Tate stopped laughing. Summer, don't be upset. I like your dad. I think we can learn to get along. He pulled me into a hug, his soft hands rubbing my back. I hope so. I pulled away from him and sat on the bed, glancing at the picture of my mom on my bedside table. My mother would have loved you right away. Even if she didn't love you, she would have pretended to. She might have even treated you better than Kai, I said, smiling a little. Tate, you really are wonderful. I'm so glad I know you. Empty. I knew how Tate felt now. So completely empty. I know I had told him so many times we were friends. Just friends. I fucking hated myself for it. I could have had him, I could have had everything I ever wanted if I wasn't such a stubborn ass. What made it even worse was watching him do all the things he used to do with me with that stupid fucking Asian chick. I couldn't even remember her name. Winter. Autumn. Ling Ho. Probably something stupid and Chinese and ritualistic. Maybe I could convince Tate she was in a cult and he would gravitate away. He thought I didn't know. He thought I didn't know that he snuck off to see her almost constantly. He thought I didn't know about the glances, the kisses, the touches, the tender words spoke between them when no one was there to witness. Except me. I was always there. If I were any more alive than dead, my heart would be in a million pieces, but I guess that's one principle that doesn't go away with death. I was feeling more than I had since I was alive, pain, heartbreak, the ache in your chest and the tears that well up for no good reason. Love was fucking cold fire. Violet? It sounded like spring. Or was her name Cho Ming? Li Mong? Whatever, I was still in deep shit. What are you doing here? In my bedroom? It's my bedroom, I thought, turning to face her. Well, Jesus Christ, what the fuck was her name? Mulan. Beef fried rice. Summer. It was summer. Sorry to show up unannounced, Summer, but I was kinda lonely. I haven't had a friend in a while, maybe we could talk. And by talk, I meant find out about every detail of her and Tate's relationship so I could destroy it. Keep your friends close, but you're whore humans who moved into your former house and stole your dead boyfriend with their slut brainwashing enemies closer. Oh, yeah, sure. She bounced over to the bed, patting for me to sit down. She bounced. Jesus. What do you want to talk about, exactly? Think, Vi, think. Get her to talk about Tate but don't seem desperate to talk about Tate. I'm having boy troubles. I broke up with my boyfriend a while ago, and for good reason, but now I think we should get back together, but he's dating some other. Violet, don't be too obvious. Some other girl. She paused before answering. For a moment, I thought I had underestimated her intelligence. She would know. She would know I was talking about her. Well, if he's happy, Violet, what can you do? If you care enough to be with him, you'll care about his happiness. I wanted to scream at her. I don't want him to be happy with you, I want it to be me. As much as I wanted to deny her words, I knew she was right. Oh, is all I said, instead of screaming at her. How pathetic. Oh, dear, I didn't mean to upset you. Is that not what you wanted to hear? Ugh, there was sweetness surrounding her in an untouchable bubble. I couldn't punch her if I tried. I was kind of hoping you'd tell me to kick the other girl's ass and get him back. She laughed. Oh, if only I were kidding, sweet pea. I could sense him now. He was watching. I hope he hadn't been there too long and heard what I said, because unlike Summer, Tate would understand my hypothetical nonsense, and I didn't want to know what his thoughts were on this situation. I had a feeling it would hurt too bad. Thank you, Summer. I guess I'll see you around. She smiled so brightly at me. No wonder why her name was Summer, it was like looking directly into the fucking sun. Of course. Please, we should do this again. It was fun. Fun. My pain was fun. I'm glad. I liked Summer, a lot. Dare I say love? But she just wasn't enough. She didn't give me the same electricity Violet did. Her smile didn't make me feel whole and her touch felt somehow wrong. It was all wrong. But I liked Summer, a lot. There was too many complications between me and Violet, too much past, too much pain. But she was all I ever knew. I told Violet I didn't love her anymore, but anyone with half a brain knew that wasn't true. Violet had been there for so long. I had already tangoed with the living girls, and that hadn't turned out well at all. I was so stuck. I didn't know what to do. My mind told me to quit on Violet, but my heart demanded no. Summer was everything I had ever wanted, but Violet was all I had ever loved. Hello, Summer. She had been popping up a lot lately, when I least expected it. Most times it was when Tate wasn't around, like when I was in the middle of my studies or late at night. I had stopped questioning how she managed to get around the way she did. This house had many secrets and I just assumed she was one of them. Hey, Violet, I answered, looking up from typing my essay. Tate had told me a lot about her. He would talk about when Violet had lived in this house, what her family was like, and just about everything Violet for what seemed like hours on end, but he always seemed to sketchily leave out some details. I had my suspicions about the both of them, but I mostly let go of the ones I had about Tate. I refused to let it ruin us. What are you doing? Violet moved closer into the room and shut the door behind her. No matter how beautiful, she had always scared me. Depressed, death-obsessed, strikingly pretty girls can do that to you. Just finishing up homework so I'll be free for this Halloween thing tomorrow night. I'm going with Tate. Violet looked somehow pleased and in pain at the same time. Tate had told me about how Halloween was he and Violet's favorite holiday. I wonder if there was bittersweet memories about them then. Where? She spoke passive-aggressively. It was confusing me. At the school. I was on the decorating committee for it. That's amazing. Her voice dripped with sarcasm. What was she up to? Free. For a whole night I was free. I could do anything I wanted. Anything. But I had only one thing in mind. It hadn't always been my plan. No, I was going to spend my whole Halloween any way I fucking wanted, not basing it around Summer. Lately, I had become almost obsessed with her. Was she with Tate? Was she near him? Was he thinking about her? Was she thinking about him? No thought that wasn't Summer-related entered my head. It was almost too perfect. She would be in an easily accessible place, a place where a dead teenage girl could fit in on a Halloween night. Tate would be there. He would be able to see what I was willing to do for him. Night came quickly and I started to chicken out. I wanted to chicken out. But, for some reason, I just couldn't. I waited for Summer to leave with Tate. She was dressed as a Raggedy Ann doll, and Tate was wearing normal clothing, continually claiming to be a sociopath because they looked just like everyone else on the outside. She had no idea. I watched them walk down the sidewalk in the direction of the school, and silently made my way out of the house to follow them. When we reached the school, my heart sunk. What was I doing? I couldn't do this. I couldn't. But you will do it, coward, somewhere deep inside me whispered. I knew I had to. This was the last time I would think about chickening out. Tate held the gymnasium door open for Summer, giving me a peek inside. It looked like a party threw up Halloween decorations. It was a typical school dance. I followed, and shortly after them, many pubescent, pimply teenage boys making catcalls in my direction. I didn't have time to flirt to make Tate jealous. Tonight, it was all about Summer. I did my best to stay away from them, but within a certain distance so that I could see them. I watched as Summer introduced Tate to a few girls who looked like that kind of people I wanted to strangle in high school, you know, the peppy, overly girly ones who were secretly whores. They gave Summer a weird look, almost as if to say, where did you get this thing? The garbage out back. Tate was hot, but to others, he looked like he hadn't slept in months and couldn't afford a pair of clothes that weren't dingy and from the dinosaur ages. Tate looked completely uninterested. He kept looking around, as if he could sense that I was here. Maybe he was just terrified someone would recognize him as the school shooter from the 90s and everything would go to shit. Probably the latter, but I liked to pretend it was because of me. I waited. And waited. And waited some more. I waited until Summer whispered in Tate's ear and he nodded, and waited until she was inside the bathroom to sprint after her. I gripped the grimy door handle and pulled it open, twisting the little knob behind me, locking the entire bathroom shut. It was just me and Summer. No one else. I heard the toilet flush, and my heart started to race. This is it, I said to myself, gripping the wire I had taken from the basement that was hidden under my shirt. Summer opened the bathroom stall, coming face to face with me. She looked startled. Oh, hello, Violet. Then she smiled. I'm really glad to see you. It's nice to see that you care enough about me to show up. Summer went to the sink and turned on the faucet, beginning to wash her hands. Yeah, I spoke, coming up behind her, I care a lot. In one swift movement that even surprised me, I bashed her head against the side of the sink, hard enough to send her to the ground but not hard enough to knock her unconscious. I pulled the cord out from underneath my shirt, unraveling it quickly and pinning Summer to the ground. She was crying. Violet, please, what are you doing? I wrapped the cord around her neck, tight, causing her pleas of peace to choking for air. I continued to pull tighter and tighter, looking her in the eyes, never once feeling any mercy. Somewhere inside me screamed, stop. What are you doing? But too much of me loved the power, loved watching the color drain from her face and the light leave her eyes. Once she had stopped kicking, stopped choking, I figured the deed had been done. Walking over to the door, I looked at her lifeless body once last time. I'll see you at home. I couldn't help myself, I smiled. She was gone. She was gone. Police had been coming in and out of the house for weeks now. They made me nervous. It reminded me of my own mistakes all those years ago. This time, though, they weren't here for me. We've given you all the pictures we have, Summer's dad choked, taking his glasses off to rub his eyes. Please just find her. Kai hadn't said a word since she disappeared. I was the one who told Mistering that Summer had gone to the bathroom and hadn't come back. I waited all night for her before I had to go back to the house. Mistering patted Kai's head, still talking to police in between tears. Please, the kids already lost their mother. You have to find Summer. He started to cry. Please. Kai sat stone-faced, not moving a muscle. I felt Violet behind me, her hand on my arm. It'll be okay. No matter what happens, it'll be okay. I turned to face her. Her golden hair shone in the sunlight like it did all those years ago, her eyes holding the same entrancing spell that made me fall in love with her. She smiled softly at me. It might be okay for you, but it won't be okay for that family down there. It won't be okay for me. I had a feeling in my gut that Violet knew where Summer was. It ate at me all the time, ever since Summer disappeared. You fucking know where she is and you won't stop being a selfish bitch long enough to tell anybody. She was about to speak, an angry glare in her eyes, when one of the police officers' walkie-talkies squawked to life. Chief, we found the missing Asian adolescent. Fantastic. Call for backup and radio me the details. The chief turned to Summer's dad and her brother. Well, as you heard, they found her. I'm just going to step outside to find out some more. I'll try to keep you waiting as little as possible. Mr. Ng didn't allow himself to feel the weightlessness of relief just yet. I think he knew he wouldn't be receiving good news. As they were waiting for new information, Kai spoke up. What if she's dead, Dad? He asked it angrily, a light tone of accusation in his voice. What? Mr. Ng replied, a look of shock on his face. You heard me. What if she's dead? Are we gonna move to Loa or something? Are we just going to abandon Summer and erase her from our memories if they find her and she's dead, like you did with Mom? Are we gonna do this, Kai gestured to the house, all over again? He didn't have time to reply to a fuming Kai because the chief officer came through the front door. He took off his hat, his eyes suddenly traveling to where Violet and I sat on the banister of the stairs. Of course, he couldn't see us, but the look in eyes caused my stomach to drop. Mr. Ng, Kyle, please, let's go sit down. He followed them into the kitchen, Violet and I moving to continue to see what was happening. Once everyone was seated, the chief began to get fidgety. This. He began, not making eye contact. This is the hardest part of the job. Pulling a photograph from his pant pocket, he slid it across the table to Mr. Ng. Can you please identify this as your daughter? I peered over his shoulder, unseen. It showed Summer lying on her back somewhere in the woods, a ring of purple and green around her neck. Mr. Ng said nothing. He sat quietly for what seemed like hours. Kai sat silently beside him. Suddenly, Mr. Ng flew into a rage. No. No. This isn't my fucking daughter, it can't be. I raised her better. I raised her to be great. My daughter wouldn't end up like this. She certainly wouldn't end up like this so young. Summer is living a great life. She's valedictorian, you know. Even with all the shit thrown her way, she's freaking first in her class. She's amazing. She's everything I ever hoped for her to be. He burst into tears. How can she be dead? She's fucking valedictorian. She plays badminton, she loves salad and hates pizza, she wants to be a doctor. How can she be dead? The officer took the photo back, tucking it away. We'll do everything we can to find out who did this to her, sir. I am so sorry for your loss, Mr. Ng. He turned to Kai, looking him right in the eyes. So sorry. Kai's face remained dry. Don't be. I'm used to it. He stood up quick, too quick, his chair falling over behind him. Thank you for finding her, officer. He walked away tall, trying his best to seem unaffected by the news. As he passed me on the stairs, I saw the tears in his eyes. I could feel all the hurt in his young heart. I looked at Violet, anger consuming my whole being. What did you do to her? It was more of a statement than a question. It burned my throat and blistered my tongue. What? Nothing, Tate, why dash? What the fuck did you do, Vi? Jesus Christ, I knew you were fucked up. We all are. But killing her? Her? Why? Because I liked her. Because you pushed me away and when I needed someone and you weren't there, she was? Oh, for fuck's sake. You know, Tate, the people you killed didn't do shit to you. They had lives, they were going somewhere. They either couldn't give Nora a baby or they just happened to be around when you snapped. Have some fucking consideration. I couldn't be near her. I couldn't do this right now. I squeezed my eyes tight, just like she did to me all those years ago. Go away. When I opened them again, all I could see was Summer's father, all alone in the kitchen, crying over the daughter Violet had taken from him. Violet stood with Tate and her parents, the baby crying in her mother's arms. It was strange for her to be looking on an empty house. Even though Summer's family had moved out months ago, no one had gotten used to the emptiness. This was the house's last day. They were coming to tear it down. She tried to ignore the fact that Tate was extremely angry with her. They hadn't talked for a while, but had a silent support system. The relationship hadn't been poisoned by hate just yet. Violet grabbed Tate's hand, afraid he would pull away. He didn't, but he didn't hold her hand back. "I know," she whispered, staring straight ahead. "I know you're mad about Summer. I know I did something terribly wrong, but I forgave you for what you did, Tate. I forgave you because I love you. It's time for you to forgive me, because I'm scared, Tate. I don't know what's going to happen to us once they tear this house down, and I'm scared. I need you." He listened to her words carefully. He wasn't ready to speak to her, no, not yet. But he did love her. He loved her so much it hurt. So, he squeezed her hand and pulled her close. But he didn't say a word. Tate. Was holding her hand not enough for her, he thought. "Tate, look at me." He looked at her. She wasn't crying and she didn't look hurt. She looked pissed. "I need you to say something that will make it feel a little better. Just a little fucking better. Summer isn't going to matter once this house is gone. Nothing is going to matter." Violet felt her panic rising. "Will we die?" Tate laughed. He couldn't stop himself. He laughed so hard he couldn't breathe, not that he needed to. "Violet, we're dead, remember?" He spoke quietly, and he didn't say anything comforting, but just the sound of his voice made her feel better. "Oh, yeah." Neither of them said anything more. The Harmons and Tate sat in silence, waiting for their final resting place to come crashing down around them. It was only the five of them. Violet, her family, and Tate. Everyone else had moved on. Every time they did, Tate cried in frustration. He knew the only thing holding him back now was Violet. He couldn't leave because he loved her, and he couldn't stop. "I don't believe in God," he remembered telling Violet one day. "If God were real, would my life be so messed up? Would I be so messed up? God is supposed to love all his children equally, so if that bastard was real I would be in heaven. I wouldn't be here rotting away." Violet had just looked at him, her expression blank. He could tell she was thinking. "Maybe we have moved on, we're just in hell." She smiled. He laughed. "Damn, it sure as hell feels like it, Vi." He was pulled from his thoughts when the baby began to cry. "Excuse me," Vivian spoke, getting up and leaving the room, hoping to quiet him down. "Where will we go?" Violet spoke, going to the window to see if anyone was coming. "Will we stay on this empty plot of land? Will they build a new house? Will we just disappear?" Ben looked from her to the front door. "Who knows, honey? Who the hell knows?" It wasn't long until the loud rumbles of trucks began sounding outside. Men shouted, metal slammed around. "Here we go," Tate spoke, taking Vi's hand. They tore into the house with a wrecking ball. Violet had only seen those in movies. She didn't think they would use one. Dust and wood and all kinds of debris collapsed around them. Construction workers pounded away at the house with the wrecking ball until only the foundation was left, which they began to fill with dirt. Violet felt herself getting dizzy. So did Tate. It didn't take long for everything to go black.